One of the biggest challenges for CIOs, CISOs, and other security professionals is the ability to gain clarity on what is on the network and ensuring that those assets are included in the overall risk management program. Regardless of the reason, these challenges present clear risks to the organization and critical business operations. Also, assets may be visible in Active Directory, but keeping those dynamic changes in sync with your risk program seems almost impossible, at least until now. Organizations can now connect SAINT's VRM solution to one or more Active Directory services and populate assets within the platform and automatically keep asset information in sync as new devices connect or as asset information such as IP address, MAC address, operating system, and other attributes change over time. From that connection, VRM will automatically create asset tags from the asset information, so scan configurations are automatically updated with the latest asset lists for each of these connections. An analysis can be performed on the most current collection of assets, not just what was entered during a manual setup of the previous scan. The end result is true clarity of current risks with reduced level of effort and greater return on your VRM investment. So to configure a connection to your asset management source, we'll navigate to the Manage tab and Assets. And VRM will display a list of all the different types of features and capabilities of asset management. So to create a connection, we'll navigate to the asset source. And in this case, we've already established one source that we can walk through the setup. To create the source, you can use the grid actions and create asset source. So to create a connection, first thing we want to do is give the connection a name. In this case, we're using VRM, and it's our test environment of our Active Directory service. So we just gave it this short name. Currently, Active Directory is the initial source type that we support. Future releases of the product will support other different asset management systems. So in this case, Active Directory is the default. The default port is 389. If you use an SSL, you can also use optionally other ports. The username for the connection is the fully qualified domain and user account with administrative access for the connection to Active Directory. So we've established that here. The search base is the domain name plus the local configuration. And when you're setting up the server information, you can, once you've verified and tested this connection, you can get the server information here for these parameters. Just keep in mind that when you're setting this up, there is no space between before or after this comma. It's a little small sort of lessons learned. The identifying attribute is the object's GUID. In this case, it's already pre-populated. For the background import process, this is the duration or the period that you want that the synchronization to occur. So once you've done the initial import, you want to establish how often you want this background process to run to synchronize with that connection to bring in new assets or keep the current information up to date of existing assets in your repository. In this case, we've established that connection synchronization period of once every hour. So the next setting is to establish the scanning engine we want to use for the connection. If you have a distributed environment, you'll have multiple scanning engines distributed amongst different locations. And so to reach the Active Directory service, you'll select a scanning engine that can reach that Active Directory service as well as the endpoints that you want to scan. So in this case, we have an Active Directory service set up and a VPC on Amazon and AWS services. So we're selecting that scanning engine, that SAINT scan node that we've configured for that VPC. We give the server's IP address to the Active Directory service we're connecting to. In this case, the default is for SSL is set to no. If you're using SSL, please keep in mind that you want to put that Active Directory server certificate on the installed SAINT systems, including those remote nodes. So we might want to get our connection string. So we put username and password for the credentials. And then we want to test that connection. And as stated earlier, you can click the server information button to collect information about that server connection. The search filter by default is already set up for you for the object class, and no further action is needed there, as well as the collected attributes. The default is to collect each one of the attributes in the default Active Directory state, what host name, operating systems, when it was created, descriptions, etc. If you have other attributes you've established in Active Directory, certainly add those here. So matching existing assets is based on how we define uniqueness. Because we possibly in this environment have multiple scanning engines scanning across different VPCs, we may have the same host name in different VPCs. So we use the scanning engine's name and the host name concatenated together to define uniqueness to match what we define as a unique host. If you have one Active Directory service, maybe it's just simply host name. You can also use the canonical name plus the scanning engine if that is more applicable to your environment. In this case, we'll use the host name along with the scanning engine to define uniqueness. And we want to resolve those hosts to the IP address. So we want to save this connection and save an import to bring in, once the connection is valid, to bring in the current list of attributes and asset information. So once that connection happens and the import is completed, we can go back to our asset list to see what we've imported. In this case, we can see from the asset source GUID that information came in. We have two assets that we've imported through that SAINT scan node name, that Active Directory node, that VRM node that we selected previously. And we have the current IP address, and we'll see the asset tags that were created during that connection. The operating system, the asset source is established based on that default name that we gave it earlier. The operating system type, host name, that BIOS name, when it was created, the description, and in this case, there was a location attribute that came out of Active Directory, created a location for that. So once that information is available to you, then you can use that asset source by its asset tag to dynamically set up scan jobs in the future to do recurring scans without having to go back in and manage those assets over time. That through this connection, those scan jobs you've established using this asset tag for the asset source, any new information that gets refreshed in the repository will automatically become the scan collection for the assets that are used in recurring scans. So we'll cover how to take advantage of this connection and the information that we collect to set up scan jobs and do recurring scan jobs and look at scan results in a future video. We hope this video has been informative and beneficial to your overall experience with the SAINT VRM platform. Thanks for watching.